Good morning. This is the time and place for the zoning cases hearing for August 4th, 2010. My name is Jeff Hamilton, and I will be conducting the hearing as the hearing officer. We have two cases today, it looks like, and the relevant exhibits are posted on the panels directly behind me. Under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.43 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a variance shall be granted if four required findings are present: that the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance; that there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended use or development of the property that do not apply generally to other property in the same zone or neighborhood; that the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood in which the property is located, and that the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. The second case today is a conditional use permit. So under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.42 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a conditional use permit shall be granted if four required findings are present. They are that the proposed use will be consistent with the elements and objectives of the general plan, that the use and its associated structures and facilities will not be detrimental to the public health or safety, the general welfare, or the environment, that the use and facilities will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property, and that the adequate public and private facilities, utilities, landscaping, parking spaces, and traffic circulation measures are or will be provided for the proposed use. Since the conditional use permit involves a change in operation of a liquor store, there are findings relevant to alcoholic beverage sales. Those five criteria are that the census tract, if the census tract has more than the recommended maximum concentration of on-sale or off-sale uses, and as recommended by the California Department of Alcohol Beverage Control, such use does not nor will not tend to intensify or otherwise contribute to the adverse impacts on the surrounding area caused by such overconcentration. That if the crime reporting district location of the existing or proposed use with a crime rate which exceeds 20% of the city average for Part 1 crimes as reported by the Glendale Police Department, and that such use or such expansion will not tend to encourage or intensify crime within the district; that the existing or proposed use does not or will not adversely impact any church, public or private school or college, daycare facility, public park, library, hospital, or residential use within the surrounding area; that adequate parking and loading facilities are or will be provided for the existing or proposed use, or other reasonable alternatives satisfy the transportation and parking needs of the existing or proposed use; and that notwithstanding consideration of criteria 1 through 4, the existing or proposed use does or will serve a public necessity or public convenience purpose for the area. If the findings presented in the application and at the hearing meet the criteria described, then the hearing officer can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, placed in the local newspaper, and posted on the city's website. The hearing will proceed as follows. I'll read the description of the application or request. I'll receive a staff report from staff. I'll read reports received from other city departments and letters or communication from interested parties. The applicant will then be asked to come forward, state his name and address, and will be asked to present the case with a 15-minute time limit. Others in the audience in support of or in opposition to the application and interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak, again clearly stating both name and address, with a 3-minute time limit. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments, if desired, in response to testimonies given by preceding speakers within a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will then be closed and the case taken under submission, or a decision might be rendered at the hearing. After the hearing, the decisions will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal may obtain forms and brochures on the procedures from Building and Safety Section, Permit Services Center, located on the same floor of this building. If you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of the speaker forms which have been provided by the front door and submit it to our planning assistant or to the clerical staff. This includes applicants. Okay, so the first hearing is case number PVAR 2010-11. The applicant's name is Kip Clayton Architects, representing Trader Joe's. The address of the property is 2448 Honolulu Avenue. The description of the project is an application for a variance to allow installation of a new projecting sign which exceeds the maximum size and thickness requirements to be located on the proposed building, located at 2448 Honolulu Avenue in the C21 Community Commercial Zone, Height District 1, described as portions of lot numbers 311, 312, 313 in tract number 1701. Okay, so Roger, will you please give a staff report?
Yes, I will. Good morning. The applicant is requesting approval of a variance to allow the installation of a new projecting sign which exceeds the maximum size and thickness requirements to be located on the proposed building at 2448 Honolulu Avenue. As you may recall, initially the variance and a CUP conditional use permit for Trader Joe's were heard on June 9th. The conditional use permit was for the sales of alcoholic beverages, and that was approved on June 22nd. But the variance was continued to provide additional information requested by the planning hearing officer, yourself. Since the previous public hearing, the applicant has changed the design of the proposed projecting sign, and the variance was renoticed. Staff believes that findings can be made to support the approval of the variance. All of the site plan, the new proposed sign, elevations, and some pictures are posted in back of you. The proposed projecting sign is located on the entry element of the building and faces both directions of Honolulu Avenue. As proposed, the sign will be 44 square feet, and that's slightly larger than what was initially proposed, and 23 inches in thickness. The city sign regulations require that projecting signs not exceed 6 square feet in height and 6 inches in thickness. The first finding, strictly applying the sign regulations, will result in unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the intent of the ordinance. One intent of the sign regulations is to prevent businesses from installing excess signage, and that which creates which creates clutter and detracts from the appearance of the buildings in the commercial areas. To reinforce this intent, only one projecting sign is allowed per ground floor occupancy, and the size is restricted to a very limiting 6 square feet. Sign thickness is also restricted to a maximum of 6 inches to maintain the appropriate scale with the maximum size. The proposed Trader Joe's projecting sign will be 44 square feet in area. No wall signs are proposed on the building at this time. Under the code, Trader Joe's would be allowed to have 2 wall signs by right, 124 square feet along Honolulu Avenue and 136 square feet along the frontage that faces the proposed parking lot. While the proposed projecting sign is 38 square feet larger than it would otherwise be allowed, it is significantly less than the maximum 260 square feet of wall sign area that could have been installed on the building. Typically, tenant frontages in the Montrose Shopping Park, of which the proposed building is adjacent to, those spaces are significantly narrower than the proposed Trader Joe's market frontage. If the Honolulu Avenue frontage of 124 feet was divided into smaller storefronts to accommodate multiple tenants, typical of the Montrose area. At a minimum, 3 storefronts would fit within 124 feet of frontage and would result in the ability of the stores to have up to 18 square feet of projecting sign area, 3 signs at 6 square feet maximum. Trader Joe's is requesting a 44 square foot projecting sign, which is nearly 2.5 times the size that would be allowed with the 3 storefronts, as I just went over. In order to assure oversighting does not take place with large wall signs, staff is recommending that the maximum wall signage area for any wall sign is recommending the maximum wall signage area for wall signs to be restricted or to be reduced by 60%. So instead of the maximum 260 square feet of wall sign area, or their ability to provide that much, we're suggesting a maximum equal to 104 square feet. Since the proposed building will contain only 1 occupant, or no other projecting signs will be allowed on the building. How we came up with a 104 square feet is assuming that 3 signs of 6 square feet each could have been placed on the building with 3 tenants, which is reasonable, allowing 18 square feet of projecting sign. The proposed sign is 44 square feet, or approximately 2.5 times the maximum that would be permitted. So that translates into a 60%. To make it equivalent, that translates into a roughly 60% reduction in wall sign size. So that's how we came up with the 104 square feet. Given the size of the projecting sign, the proposed 23-inch thickness of the sign is appropriate to maintain the sign proportions. The design of the building on the property is driving the need for the projecting sign variance, and is the exceptional circumstance which warrants granting the variance. The style of the building, and there are just 2 elevations up there. I can put other elevations if you'd like. Was important since it's located just west of the Montrose Shopping Park. The city, Trader Joe's, and the surrounding community all believe it was extremely important to develop the site, which would integrate and be a part of and consistent with the Montrose Shopping Park. The style of the building does harken back to the early 20th century, and the importance of the architectural style of the building and locations of the proposed elements that carry out the design, in effect, limit the placement and type of sign used on the building. The proposed projecting sign, while larger and thicker, will be located in the upper portion of the entry element and will become another architectural element of the building, which will reinforce the architectural style of the building. The granting of the variance to allow installation of the projecting signs will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property. Installing the proposed sign will require issuance of a sign permit. Obtaining a sign permit and subsequent inspections will ensure proper installation of the proposed sign to eliminate potential safety issues. Projecting signs are required to have a minimum clearance of 8 feet between the bottom of the sign and the ground surface. The proposed sign will have a clearance of approximately 14 feet to avoid being a pedestrian obstruction or visual obstruction to motorists. Again, as previously mentioned, the proposed building is designed in a style reminiscent of the early 20th century commercial architecture found in the area. The proposed projecting sign is also reminiscent of early 20th century commercial signs and is complementary to the style of the proposed building. We have a couple old pictures also posted showing that. Therefore, the granting of the variance for the proposed sign will be complementary to the property and on-sign improvements and will build upon the uniqueness and charm of the nearby shopping area. The granting of the variance to allow installation of the projecting sign will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance, the fourth finding. The intent of sign regulations, among other things, is to create a more attractive business climate, enhance and protect the physical appearance of the community, reduce advertising obstructions, and curb deterioration of the community environment. One of the means to enhance the business climate is to provide some flexibility in terms of sign standards. While the proposed projecting sign exceeds the maximum size permitted for commercial signs by 38 square feet, the 44 square foot sign is much smaller than the wall signs, as I previously mentioned. To ensure that the flexibility allowed by this variance is not taken advantage of, staff again is recommending adding a condition placing that restriction on or reducing the size of the amount of wall signage that could be placed on the building. Staff recommends approval of the variance and the draft conditions contained in the staff report.
Thank you. When we had the hearing previously on this matter, I had asked for, I believe, 3 items, 2 of which I can remember, and the third I can't, frankly, and there's no minutes in here. The first item I asked for was to find out the answer to the question of, are there other projecting signs currently in Montrose? Do I see that there's a photographic survey of Montrose?
There is. It's not 100% of the buildings, but there is a stack of photos there. I didn't see any currently located projecting signs or currently installed projecting signs, but that's a pretty good inventory of businesses and signs that are out there.
And then one of my other questions was, does Trader Joe's at any of their other locations sort of nearby in Southern California, and I'm not talking about countrywide, but in this area, do any of those buildings have projecting signs on them?
To my knowledge, no, but we can confirm that with...
Is Trader Joe's prepared to speak to that question? Not necessarily right now, but
yeah,
when you come forward. Okay. And then I had a question about... Then I had another question.
Your third request was to see what a typical Trader Joe's wall sign would look like on the elevation, and those are posted.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for reminding me. So we've got the photo survey. Trader Joe's will speak to the issue about whether they have any other projecting signs. The other thing I noticed in looking at the plans is that it looks like there's illumination on the new proposed projecting sign. They've got a band of LEDs.
There is.
How does that, do you have any analysis about whether that is consistent with the zoning code?
Because it is, and I always get this mixed up, it's considered direct illumination. And hold on a second, let me get the right wording. Okay, projecting signs, which this sign is, can only be directly illuminated, which means that it can't contain lighting from within the sign. It's my understanding that how this sign is proposed, the lighting is not within the sign, but on the outside of the sign. So it would be considered direct illumination.
Is Trader Joe's also proposing the more typical way that we have seen direct illumination implemented with some sort of spots or canned lights that are focused on the sign and they are installed or attached to the building itself. Are they proposing that kind of illumination in addition?
Let me, in the previous submittal, they were, or the previous sign they were. That's a good question, and, we can ask them. I'm not sure if they're continuing or not continuing to do that with this proposed sign.
Okay. Okay, I'll ask the Trader Joe's representative when they come up. Do you have anything else to add to your staff report?
I don't.
Okay, I'm going to review the comments that have been received on this project.
Now, well, actually, can I interject then? The comments, there aren't any new comments from the previous public hearing.
Okay.
So all those were read into the record. You can certainly do that again, but it was...
I'm going to do it just to refresh my memory.
Okay, that's fine.
There's a comment here that seems to be more related to the existence of this is from the public, more related to the existence of the store or maybe the alcohol sales, and doesn't relate to the sign.
When the project was initially routed, it was routed with the conditional use permit for alcohol and the variance for the sign, and so comments could be either.
Yes. I'm just noting that the comment that I'm seeing doesn't relate to the sign.
Oh, okay.
That's all. For the record. Doesn't look like Public Works Engineering had any comments related to the sign. Integrated Waste has no comments relevant to the sign. Maintenance Services has comments about street trees and improvements related to that. This project is subject to design review, correct?
It is subject to design review, and design review approved the project, I believe, in late June.
So at that time, design review would have reviewed and been considering landscaping, street trees.
They did consider it, yes.
Okay. Traffic and Transportation has comments, but these are not relevant to the sign. No comments from Development Services. No comments from Parks and Rec. And I've reviewed all the departments except for police, and it looks like police's comments are not pertinent to the sign, but more in about the alcohol beverage sales, which was previously approved. So that completes my review of the comments on the project. Okay, next up will be applicant. Please come forward, state your name and address, and you have a 15-minute time limit to make your presentation.
Doug Yokomizo with Trader Joe's, 800 South Shamrock Avenue, Monrovia, California, 91016. I'll just be very brief. You asked a question about blade signs, and blade signs are not a part of our typical sign package. We don't have any stores with blade signs in Southern California, but our typical store is in a shopping center. We would be going in with 42-inch channel letters on 3 to 4 sides of the building. The elevation, the second one down that shows the building signage here, those are 24-inch letters. It's showing what they would look like to fit within the 104 square foot limit on building signage. So our typical new store in a shopping center, you'd be looking at 36 to 40-inch letters. So, and the idea for the blade sign came up through a series of meetings we had with city staff, with other members of the community. going over what types of building they would like. You know, it was a very interactive process, and somebody came up with the idea of going very retro, making it fit in with, you know, Montrose, and I believe one of the community members had suggested the blade sign, and we went with it. So Kip can, our architect, can address the design elements to the sign. Do you have any other questions?
Only for the architect, I think.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Kip Craig. My address is 814 West Chapman in Orange. I am the architect of record for the project. One of the comments I'd like to make in regards to this sign in terms of illumination, excuse me, the sign is exterior lit. The original proposal was to mount spotlights on top of the canopy. That still is the direction that we're taking.
So in addition to the LED halo,
Right.
you're going to have spots on the canopy directed at the sign.
Exactly. There is no interior lighting within the sign itself.
So is the thickness of the sign purely an aesthetic choice then to maintain some sort of proportionality that Roger was mentioned in his staff report?
I think it has more to do with the structural integrity of the sign, according to the Continental Signs design parameters. It was basically just a derivative of how the structure of that particular sign was developed.
So it's sort of a structural requirement.
Yeah, and
sort of.
to be honest with you, it probably could be narrower, but that wasn't the key considerations when they were developing the sign in its thickness.
One of the things that troubles me a little bit about the design of the sign is the large gap between the two faces. It seems odd.
Okay.
And it seems like a likely location for pigeons and pigeon droppings and things like that. Is there a reason why that was chosen?
I think that the relationship between those two blades has to do with the function of what the palm tree graphics are in it. I don't think that the sign, the box itself, has projecting elements around it as indicated in that side view of it throughout the sign itself. I think it's probably just a mechanism of what the fronds of the tree actually do in relationship to the box.
Yeah, I think I see your point. Is it would be very hard to design the box to match the shape of the fronds, basically.
But in terms of taking care of birds, we can provide a mechanism to eliminate that possibility.
Well, the other part of that I wondered about, and maybe you can come forward to show me on the site plan,
Okay.
is the precise location of the blade in relation to the canopy. We see here
Right.
that it's here, and then I see the canopy extending, and I see support. But what I'm not sure is the blade sort
Can I
of...
borrow your pen?
Sure.
Actually, I also have a,
It's right here.
You have something, Roger?
yeah, this is colored.
So it extends beyond the canopy, or it is
Right
actually above the canopy?
It's above it.
Okay, so if there are pigeons up there, it's going to drop onto the canopy,
Yeah, that's what
onto the
it'll
top
do.
of the canopy. Okay.
Good?
Yeah, that answers that question.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Do either you or Trader Joe's have any objections to the proposed condition limiting the size of the wall signs?
No, we do not.
Would you have any objection if there was a further refinement that said something to the effect, no one particular wall sign shall exceed 52 square feet? Half of the total of 104.
I believe the signs are 104 square feet total existing. I don't.
Well, they're not existing, but
Or as drawn.
yes.
As proposed.
Actually, as drawn, it looks like they're 20 feet 2 inches in length and 2 feet in height. So it would be just over 40 square feet in area each.
Yeah, like, as proposed, we would have no objections to that condition. Because I believe they're less than the 44 square feet as they are proposed.
Okay. I don't have any more questions for you. Oh, are you or the representative from Trader Joe's yourselves prepared to actually make your findings and put your findings into the record, or add any additional comments about the findings?
Yes, we'd be prepared to do that.
I mean, like right now. Because typically we ask applicants to make their case also in addition to staff.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah, we have really nothing further to add than what Roger's already given to you. I would believe that what we have proposed is what Trader Joe's city staff and everybody has agreed to. And at this point in time, I would say that we're accepting to any of those conditions at this point in time. I don't know if Trader Joe's or Doug would have any other comments to that request, but we're very accepting to what we have developed for that sign.
okay.
Any other
Thank you very
questions?
much. No.
Good, thanks. Thank you very much.
Is there any member of the public or who wishes to speak in support or opposition to the request? Since I don't see anybody that wants to speak like that, can I assume that Trader Joe's doesn't need any rebuttal time?
That would be correct.
Okay, very good. I'm going to close the hearing and take this item under submission, and I'll be rendering a decision probably within a week. At this time, this item is closed. The hearing on this item is closed, and I'll be passing the gavel to the next hearing officer, Brad Collin.
Good morning. This is the time and place for the second of the 2 hearing cases for today, August 4th. My name is Brad Collin, and I will be conducting the second hearing as a hearing officer today. The relevant exhibits are posted on the panel located directly behind me. If you wish to speak, please fill out one of the speaker cards over at the front and hand them to our planning assistant. I'd also like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of the planning hearing officers are recorded on tape as part of the public record. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. The subject application is a conditional use permit, which is an expansion of an existing liquor store, Remedy Liquor, located on the first floor of a 2-story shopping center. The proposed expansion is located on the second floor and will include a wine tasting area. With conditional use permits, it is required that 4 findings be met. The 4 findings are as follows. First, that the proposed use will be consistent with the elements and objectives of the general plan. Second, that the use and its associated structures and facilities will not be detrimental to the public health or safety, the general welfare, or the environment. Third, that the use and facilities will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property. And fourth, that adequate public and private facilities, which includes utilities, landscaping, parking spaces, traffic circulation measures, are or will be provided for the proposed use. In addition, there are also 5 criteria that shall be considered in making findings that are specific to the sale, service, or consumption of alcoholic beverages. The first is related to the census tract, that the census tract with more than the recommended maximum concentration level of on-sale or off-sale uses as recommended by the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control that such use does not or will not tend to intensify or otherwise contribute to the adverse impacts on the surrounding area caused by such overconcentration. Second, crime reporting district location of the existing proposed use with a crime rate which exceeds 20% of the city average for Part 1 crimes as reported by the Glendale Police Department. Such use will not tend to encourage or intensify crime within that district. Third, that the existing proposed use does not or will not adversely impact any church, public or private school or college, daycare facility, public park, library, hospital, or residential use within the surrounding area. And fourth, that the adequate parking and loading facilities are or will be provided for the existing or proposed use, or the reasonable alternatives satisfy the transportation and parking needs of the existing proposed use. And fifth, that notwithstanding consideration of criterion subsections 1 through 4 above, the existing or proposed use does or will serve a public necessity or public convenience purpose for the area. If the evidence provided in the application and at this hearing meets the criteria just described, then the hearing officer can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. At this point, I will open the public hearing and allow for our planning assistant, Ms. Kiyazan, to summarize the proposed project. From there, we will go to the applicant and anyone else wishing to speak on the project.
Good
Ms. Kiyazan.
morning. Good morning, hearing officer. The next project with the case number PCUP 2010-011, located at 1700 West Glen Oaks Boulevard, Units B and G, is the request for approval of a conditional use permit to allow expansion of the existing liquor store, Remedy Liquor, located on the first floor of a two-story shopping center. The proposed expansion is located on the second floor and will include a wine tasting area. Currently, that portion of the second floor proposed for the expansion is vacant. Since the shopping center is relatively new, not all the available spaces are occupied. The liquor store has an existing CUP for the sales of alcoholic beverages for off-site consumption for its first floor location. A new internal staircase will connect the existing first floor portion of the store to the proposed second floor. The liquor store is located within a two-story multi-tenant commercial shopping center. The center parking is accessed from the east and west sides of the site. The liquor store had been in operation at 1510 West Glen Oaks Boulevard under the name of Remedy Drug for 12 years before moving to its current location at 1700 West Glen Oaks a year ago. The general plan recommends that the location of the convenience could be distributed to small neighborhood shopping centers throughout the city, and that such location be located within in the close proximity to the residential areas. Remedy Liquor is located in a shopping center which is in proximity of residential areas and provides convenience goods to the public. Remedy Liquor has been in operation for 13 years in two locations, and at its current location will provide improved retail facilities by the proposed expansion to the second floor in conformance with the land use element. The liquor store is located in a commercial zone and complies with the intent of the general plan, which designates this neighborhood to commercial neighborhood. Remedy Liquor had been in operation at 1510 Glen Oaks Boulevard, as mentioned above, as Remedy Drug for 12 years before moving to its new location a year ago, and has not proven to be detrimental to the public since neither the neighborhood services or the police department has commented negatively. Remedy Liquor Store had been in operation, again, at this location without causing detriment. And as I mentioned, according to the police department, the area is in and around the project has above average crime activity. However, they have mentioned that an off-sale establishment would not contribute to this. Therefore, allowing the expansion of the store with the wine tasting service to a limited number of customers on an invitation-only basis should not be detrimental to public health or safety. The incorporation of the police recommendation security arm will create a safer environment for visitors to the liquor store and will contribute to overall safety of the shopping center. The liquor store has operated at its current location again without conflict with adjacent uses. There has not been any police department or neighborhood services record of major incident. The proposed expansion of the store will not increase the concentration of licenses in this census tract. Therefore, to allow the expansion of the store will not conflict with adjacent users. And the liquor store provides a service to the neighborhood and will not impede its development. The subject site is fully developed with code-required parking, and all utilities such as gas, electricity, water, and sewers are already in place. 70 parking spaces are available to shopping center visitors. The existing development is provided with adequate and safe streets capable of accommodating traffic associated with the proposed uses. The driveway on the site and parking design meet City of Glendale standards. Glen Oaks Boulevard is a major arterial street which has the capacity to carry the heaviest traffic and can accommodate the traffic generated in this commercial neighborhood. In addition, expansion of the existing retail store should not impact the generated traffic in a significant way. Staff believes that all the findings can be made in a positive manner and recommends approval with a condition which is in the body of staff report. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Kiazan. This time I'll ask for the applicant to come up, and just one quick note that of the comments that were received from the various departments, that the police department had a relevant comment basically requiring that a security arm be placed in the parking lot to help mitigate or control some potential impacts that may happen to the area. Maybe the applicant, and we also have Mr. Fox from the police department can address that.
Certainly. Good morning, Mr. Kahn, city staff. My name is Rodney Kahn. My offices are located at 1111 North Brand Boulevard, Suite 403 here in the city of Glendale. I will actually begin my presentation by addressing that topic, and then I'll go into what I wanted to say originally. In terms of installation of an arm or security device, it has already been done. We actually installed, to the great expense of the property owners, gates. And these gates actually prevent people from driving up onto the third floor deck, driving into the ground floor, and then there's the surface level, which future obstruction will be installed. So that's already been done. So to go back to my original presentation, the business establishment is Remedy Liquor, and I thought you did a very nice presentation.
Thank you.
Very complete. Currently, the business occupies 2,500 square feet on the ground floor adjacent to Glen Oaks, and it's considered Unit B. What Michael is doing now is he's expanding the business to go up to the second floor, take about 1,400 square feet, and what they'll do is they'll primarily be conducting an expansion of the business that they have right now. The new item that we're introducing is, as is mentioned, is for incidental wine tasting for private invited patrons only. That's important for me to emphasize. If you look on the floor plans that have been provided, you can see on the second floor there's a designated area where this wine tasting will take place. And it's about 400 or 500 square feet. It has some stools. It has a small bar area where the wine will be poured into glasses, and it has a small seating area and restroom as well. That's the designated area. As I go through my presentation, I'll talk a little bit further about the way it operates and the use and so forth. But as it relates to the findings, you mentioned, Mr. Kahn, that there are a number of findings that need to be made. Jolly did a nice job. I'll just touch upon them as well. The first, that the proposed use will be consistent with the various elements and objectives of the general plan. As you know, the land use element of the general plan designates the site as neighborhood commercial. The liquor store expansion, and wine tasting are consistent with that neighborhood commercial land use. Secondly, that the circulation element of the general plan and good urban planning principles encourages pedestrian-friendly businesses which primarily serve the neighborhood where they are located. Remedy Liquor is such a business that does that. Lastly, as it relates to this item, it was mentioned Remedy Liquor has conducted business at this location for a little over a year, and that they were on 1510 West Glen Oaks for about 12 years. Both of those locations were very professionally run. It's the same operator as operating this facility as well. Also, important to note, Michael, Sam, and they have one other business partner, also own the shopping center itself. So they very much have a vested interest into what type of activities take place at this center and what type of uses come into the center as well. The second, that the use and its associated structures and facilities will not be detrimental to public health or safety, welfare, or the environment. This is actually a complementing experience for the shopping customers as it relates to expanding the Remedy Liquor location. The hours of operation will remain the same for the expanded area and for the facility itself. Those hours are Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., Friday and Saturday from 9 a.m. to midnight, and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. The wine tasting will take place in the area that I already pointed out and designated. It will be in the evening, late afternoon, evening hours that it takes place, and it will be by invitation only. So it will be for very specific customers that are asked to participate and sample different wines. Of course, Remedy Liquor will be continuously in compliance with all federal, state, county, and local requirements, and that includes alcoholic beverage control. And in fact, they have approval from alcoholic beverage control subject to, and that's for the expansion and the wine tasting, but that's subject to the City of Glendale approving the conditional use permit. 3, that the use and facilities will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property. The expanded floor area, I talked about already as being operated by the same proprietor, who's a very professional businessman. The police department is here, and they can speak on their own behalf, but Remedy Liquor has been a very responsible person as it relates to both police issues, neighborhood issues, and the way they conduct their business. 4th, adequate public and private facilities such as utilities, landscaping, parking spaces, and traffic circulation measures are provided for the proposed use. Mr. Collin, this is a very new shopping center that was recently built, so of course it complies with all the city requirements for parking. In fact, we exceed the number of parking spaces that are required for landscaping, and both for public and private utilities, they're already available to the site. What I'll do now is just briefly touch on the additional findings that are required for the service, sale, and consumption of alcoholic beverages. As you mentioned, that where an existing or proposed use on site is located in a census tract with more than the recommended maximum concentration that this will not tend to intensify or otherwise contribute to adverse impacts. And as was previously mentioned, this is an expansion of the liquor store. It will not increase the actual concentration of licenses. The police department's here and they can speak on their behalf, but they said that this on-site wine tasting as well should not be detrimental to the neighborhood. The liquor store expansion will not adversely affect adjacent uses. The second item from this additional list is that where the existing or proposed use is located in a crime reporting district with a crime rate which exceeds 20% of the city average for Part 1 crimes. Once again, I'd go back to the police department that oversees this. The police department believes that although the crime rate in and around the project is above average, that allowing this existing off-sale business to have the capability of wine tasting should not be detrimental to the neighborhood. Third is that the existing or proposed use does not or will not adversely impact any church, public or private school, college, daycare facility, public park, library, hospital, or residential land use. In terms of the surrounding environment and land uses, there are no churches, schools, parks, or hospitals in the immediate vicinity. There are residential land uses, but one of the things that's important is the way we designed the center originally. The center is designed so that it fronts a commercial street, which is Glen Oaks Boulevard, and to the rear where the residential land uses, that's where the parking is, so there's no activities. So now that we have fully secured the parking as it relates to any activities that are coming and going when the shopping center is closed, which is what the concerns were, that will make it even quieter for the residential land uses to the south. Adequate parking and loading facilities are or will be provided for the existing or proposed use. I've already mentioned that we actually exceed what's required for parking. It's a 16,000 square foot retail center, would require 64 parking spaces, and we exceed that number. And then lastly, the fifth one, notwithstanding consideration of the above criteria, the existing or proposed use does or will serve a public necessity. It's already been mentioned that the liquor store provides a service to the neighborhood and will not be in conflict with impeding or adjacent uses. That concludes my presentation. I did want to talk a little bit about the conditions, but if it's okay with you, I'd rather have other people speak and then come back and speak to that in a few minutes.
That's fine.
Thank you.
The second slip that I have is from Sam Manukian.
He had to leave. Couldn't wait. So.
Okay. Mr. Fox, would you like to come up? If you could address I know there was a condition that was suggested about the arm and what your thoughts are on the gate, and have you had an opportunity to see it?
Haven't actually seen it, but I've been in contact with some people in my patrol bureau in regards to the original problem that created our concern, and then the remedy that's happened. Originally, what happened was when I was investigating this permit, I noticed that there was a loitering problem that seemed to have crept up in the parking structure itself. And our Western Command Patrol Bureau had been working with the landowner there to remedy that. Since that time, they have installed the gates, as Mr. Kahn mentioned, and that shuts off the upper parts of the parking structure, and that seems to have eliminated the problem completely. So it sounds like my recommended condition of a security arm has actually been enhanced with the gates that close off the areas that were susceptible to the loitering problem. So the existing makeup of the business and the gates that have been installed have eliminated any concerns the police department has.
The main concern was loitering taking place after the business hours, or
well, it was both during and after the business hours, but with the gates being open during business hours and the in and outflow of traffic and some proactive measures on behalf of the police department, we've been able to eliminate the loitering problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. And as far as overconcentration and crime rate, this project is not out of the norm of anything else in that region, so it wouldn't be any. There would be no concerns on that either.
And one quick question, I guess. The census tract as it's set up, is the location where the property's at, is that at one of the boundaries of the census tract? You know?
I think so, but I'd have to double check. I think you're correct on that.
And then, if that's the case, on the north side of Glen Oaks, do we happen to know if they're, what the numbers are like on that side?
No, just off the top of my head, I would only speculate that there's, as far as off sale goes, there's just the 2 grocery stores and 1 liquor store, none of which have been real police problems. So that's the only subjective comment I can make on that.
And what about on-site
On-site,
consumption?
there's a deli and a restaurant nearby, but again, neither of those have
No
significant
issues.
police problems. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Very
Carl.
much. If there's no one else in the audience, Mr. Khan, if you'd like to come up.
Sure. Thanks again. My name's Rodney Kahn. I wanted to go over the draft conditions of approval, which there are 6. And there's a few of them I'd like to talk about, or at least discuss with you guys a little further. Number 2 is that the renewal of the conditional use permit be in 2 years. And one of the things I would ask you to consider is that when we got our original conditional use permit granted April the 7th of 2009, that was actually given to us and granted for a period of 5 years. And we would request that this approval also be granted for a period of 5 years, consistent with
The previous
the
year.
previous approval. Yeah. Number 3 is fine. Number 4 would be fine. Number 5 is a security arm to the parking structure. We've already discussed that as well. Number 6 is that the applicant shall comply with all section department requirements as specified in their memos. And then there's a listing of the memos. The only thing I wanted to clarify more than anything else was the police department on May the 18th, 2010 memo. Because in the staff report, it doesn't include that, at least the one that I printed off online. So I just want to make sure that I'm agreeing with what I'm agreeing to as it relates to that memo. So if it's possible, maybe that could be read so that I can acknowledge and agree with that as well. The other ones I saw, and they look fine. It's just the one May 18th, 2010, if you have that.
Okay, and then what about condition number 1 with the hours?
Yeah, condition number 1 I wanted to come back to. We don't have a problem with the number of seats. What we wanted to ask, if it's acceptable, was that it says wine tasting may occur only from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. We just ask that that go from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. because typically things are kind of wrapping up at 10 p.m. It's not going to start at 3, so if you wanted to shift it from 4 to 10, that would be fine with us. And then the last item is no alcoholic beverages other than wine may be served or consumed at a wine tasting event. What we would ask, if it's possible, the license that we have also allows for beer. What we would hope is, if it's possible, that we also are able to have people taste different beers, if that was feasible. And those are the items.
Okay. I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
The gates that were put in, was the fire department included in review of the gate installation?
I would have to defer. I'll look back. He's Michael Iskanians is the owner of the business and part owner of the center, and he was saying not that he's aware of, but we can certainly look into it.
Because the fire department should definitely be
Sure.
on board and comfortable with operating of it and access. And the second question is there any proposal for food service in conjunction with the
The wine tasting and
Wine
stuff?
tasting.
No, there's not.
and you're also comfortable with there being the condition of not more than 8 seats?
Yes, I mean, originally we said somewhere, I think, between 5 to 10. So 8 seems reasonable. If it could go to 10, that's great. It's a very much an incidental use for them. So what they're looking at is they're looking at saying, we may have this going twice a week, once a week, whatever. Whether it's 8 people or 6 people, it's not going to be a large area. Our preference would be for it to be 10, which is what we originally had talked about, between 5 to 10. And that's maybe where you came up with 8. I'm not really sure. You just counted the chairs.
Yeah, that's mainly the seats, which keeps your classification to basically a retail type use. If you were to exceed more than that, then that changes the parking requirement.
Then we would stay at 8. That's fine.
Okay. Okay. Well, I have no other questions. So
Okay.
thank
I
you
really,
very much.
Mr. Collin, I really don't have anything else to add. Just if you guys would take into consideration the draft conditions of approval and some of the changes that I recommended, we certainly would appreciate that. And I'll conclude on those remarks. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to close the public hearing, and the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses, and have provided the name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. As it relates to potential appeals, under the appeals provision, Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal may obtain forms and brochures on the procedures from the Building and Safety Section, Permit Service Center located on the same floor of this building. As of this time, I'm going to take the case in for submission and should have a decision rendered in the next couple days. As mentioned, this hearing is now officially closed. I'd like to thank you all for coming. And it is August 4th at 11:12 a.m. And that concludes today's hearing officer meeting. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You too.